We have a massive report. According to an NBA insider and also a friend of Jordan Clarkson, he notes that the Utah Jazz guard would like a trade to the New York Knicks and would like to play in New York. We're going to break down his report and so much more today. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now and make sure you have notifications turned on so you don't miss a second of the new content. And now, let's get started. Jordan Clarkson apparently wants to be a New York Knick. Now, we've heard over the last few days about the reports coming out of Utah with the New York Knicks being linked to Jordan Clarkson and Kelly Olynyk. And we already knew that the Knicks coveted Jordan Clarkson and wanted him on the roster. However, given the cost with the Utah Jazz, we didn't think an offer could happen with the Knicks and Utah. But if Jordan Clarkson wants to be a New York Knicks and he's pushing out of Utah and he's stating to Danny Ainge that he only wants to play for the New York Knicks, then maybe there is a possibility for a way the Knicks can make a trade with the Utah Jazz. But according to Joe Verdon of The Athletic, he joined New York Sports Nation Nightly to discuss the Knicks and their current trade targets. Here's what Verdon had to say about the Knicks and who they're looking at before the trade deadline. There's a few possibilities here. It's not the kind of move that we talk about a lot when we think about the Knicks and the major star coming to the market, which I know everybody wants to see. He continues by saying, but you look at a guy like Malcolm Brogdon with the Blazers. He's on a lot of lists. Bruce Brown would be a nice fit there in Toronto. Daniel Gafford, perhaps with the Wizards. A friend of mine, Jordan Clarkson from the Utah Jazz, who would love to come to New York, is another possibility. Shout out to Joe Verdon of The Athletic for giving us this information on the Knicks and who their potential next target could be. And it seems like right now, all things are pointing to Jordan Clarkson, who, by the way, again, according to Joe Verdon, who is a friend of Jordan Clarkson, he wants to be in New York. He wants to play in New York. He essentially wants to be traded to the New York Knicks. If the Knicks know this and the Jazz know this, then I think that's the reason why you're hearing a lot of reports about Quentin Grimes and a potential trade with the Utah Jazz for Jordan Clarkson. If you don't know about the reports I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and give you some updates on that too. Michael Scotto, an NBA insider for Hoops Hype, notes that the New York Knicks and Quentin Grimes, who again was previously discussed in Donovan Mitchell trade talks, have come up again in separate discussions for Clarkson and Olynyk with the Utah Jazz. Not only that, but Michael Scotto even doubles down further on Joe Verdon's comments by stating that New York has been connected to a number of players, including Bruce Brown, Malcolm Brogdon, and yes, Alec Burks. The Knicks have also registered trade interest in Utah's Jordan Clarkson and Kelly Olynyk. And here's one of the main pieces that a league executive told Michael Scotto. Whatever team can get Clarkson will be a game changer. I think he's the best of the volume scorers available on the trade market right now. If there's one report about something, maybe you read it, you think about it, maybe you don't make too much of it. But if there's multiple reports about a singular player potentially getting traded to the New York Knicks, you start thinking, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think in this case, given who the insiders are and the publications they're coming from, I think we can take what they're saying and trust it. Because honestly, if he's a friend of Jordan Clarkson, I'm talking about Joe Verdon, he has no reason to lie about that, especially in the open media. Because if he's a friend, that talk is going to come back around. And if Clarkson did not want that information leaked, he would have told his friend not to speak about it. But clearly, that's not what happened. He spoke about it openly, brazenly, if you will. And the way he communicated that, it's like he was saying it as if it was just part of the updates. But for me, I didn't take it like that. I took clear notice of that because he was talking about all these other updates about potential players that the New York Knicks could go after. But then he paused, he talked about Jordan Clarkson, and after he mentioned him, he went on and he stated that Clarkson, his friend, would like to play for New York, would like to play for the New York Knicks, would likely like to be traded to the New York Knicks, a contender in the NBA, a team that Jordan Clarkson can come in right now and have an immediate impact on. The Knicks right now need a better bench. We need another guard that we can consistently rely on. Now, I know what you guys are going to tell me in the comments. Jordan Clarkson is having a down year. We have Quentin Grimes. We have Miles McBride. Those two look like they're going off. And if we really want to see what they can do, then we really have to play them with consistent minutes and see what they can do under pressure. I understand that. However, I also understand what I saw last year in the playoffs. Jordan Clarkson is a consistent bucket. In the playoffs, he's a consistent bucket. Let's say we go into the playoffs this year and Quentin Grimes doesn't have it and Miles McBride doesn't have it. What do you do as a Knicks team? How do you fill in for those roles? Because newsflash, in the playoffs, you're going to need a consistent bench. I know Jordan Clarkson is a very down player this year. He is not having a great year. He is a volume scorer. And not only that, the way he is impactful in a basketball game is having the ball in his hands and shooting that rock. So sometimes I can understand what you're saying, that maybe he needs the ball in his hands to be effective. And on the bench, maybe he does that. But playing with Jalen Brunson and some other people, maybe he would have a problem. If you look at his stats in Utah, did you know that he actually had a triple-double this season? He can pass the ball, he can rebound the ball, he can actually defend, and he can shoot the ball very well. Now, I understand he's a volume scorer. He needs the ball in his hands to make an impact. But if he's coming off the bench, you want the ball in his hands because, honestly, there is really nobody else on the bench that you trust to have the ball in their hands, unless you're putting a starter in with the reserves. OG, Jalen Brunson, Julius Randle, because that's what the New York Knicks have been doing. And they have to stop doing that because each and every night, one of those players, two of those players, they're playing 40 plus minutes a night each and every night. Nobody's going to complain about it, but wear and tear is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. And when you get closer to the postseason and you've played 40 plus minutes for about 30 games, it's going to hurt you in the postseason. You need to be able to rest your players and you need to be able to give them breaks. And the way you do that is by adding elite talent to this roster. Because when the player you add is elite, then that means when your good players are on the bench, you don't have to worry about anything because you have an elite player coming in, subbing in to make sure the offense is stabilized. That's what Jordan Clarkson can do. I saw the other names listed there and I understand it. I don't mind going after a Bruce Brown or a Malcolm Brogdon. I have no problem with any of those guys. But for me, and I want to go back to what the executive stated here about Jordan Clarkson, because his impact cannot be understated. Again, according to one NBA scout, he stated that whatever team can get Clarkson will be a game changer. I think he's the best of the volume scorers available on the trade market today. And there are no lies detected there. I absolutely agree with him. And if a contender can get Jordan Clarkson, that contender, who may be a fringe contender, will turn into a legitimate contender. That's the impact I think Jordan Clarkson can have. Now, he's not my first choice. He's certainly not my second choice. I would only entertain a Clarkson deal if it made sense for the New York Knicks and we're not giving up a lot of assets. But then again, you're dealing with Danny Ainge. And last I checked, he wants a haul for Jordan Clarkson. He wants a lot of assets. That's likely going to push the New York Knicks out. But the only reason I'm mentioning it today is that a friend of his in Joe Varadone from The Athletic basically spoke out and stated that Jordan Clarkson wants to be a New York Knick. And because of that, and with Utah knowing that, maybe they have more incentive to trade him now and trade him for a more fair deal. So that way Clarkson goes to where he wants to go. The Knicks get a player that they want. And then the Jazz get certain players that they want. Quentin Grimes maybe, and also maybe a first-round pick that's protected. I don't know exactly what the trade's going to be, but it's likely going to be something along those lines. You have to figure that Evan Fournier is going to have to be included to make the money work. So that's likely the trade that's going to happen. A lot of people may not like that trade because they might want to trade Quentin Grimes for a star or an all-star, and I can understand that. The unfortunate part is the only all-star player that's available, might be available anyways, is DeJounte Murray. And you guys know how I feel about him. He's number one on my list. If you can get him, that's the player you go after. But if you can't get him, after him, it's all about value and cost and impact of player. If you can get a player like Malcolm Brogdon or Bruce Brown or Jordan Clarkson for a fair deal or a cheaper deal, a deal that some would consider a steal, then that's when the New York Knicks would pounce and make that move for whoever that player would be, whether it be Brogdon, Clarkson, or Brown. But honestly, those are the players that are on the list right now. Those are the main targets. You can also add Alec Burks there as well too. And I think if the Knicks can't do anything and can't get the player that they want just because the price is too high or the value doesn't go down or whatever the case may be, then I think worst comes to worst, I think they will target Alec Burks again and they will add him back to this roster. But again, that's if other moves they target and pan out for do not play out the way they hoped. That's the only way a Burks move happens to the New York Knicks. But as of right now, their options are open. They're clearly waiting to the trade deadline, at least closer to it, to see whose value, if any player's value, goes down just a little bit. Because if that happens, that might be enough incentive for the New York Knicks to pounce on that, offer either the same package or a little bit more, and get the player that they really want and covet on this roster for this season, maybe next season, or at least prepare themselves for a very massive trade come this offseason. Either way, it's clear the New York Knicks are looking to make a move. They are gearing up to make a trade. It's looking like they're going to make a smaller trade now and a more impactful trade in the offseason. Either way, expect the move. A change is going to come. And with reports like this coming out, that Jordan Clarkson wants to be a New York Knick, that the Knicks have been talking with the Utah Jazz about a potential trade with Clarkson and Kelly Olynyk involved. And then you have other reports going out there saying that the Knicks also are looking at Malcolm Brogdon, Bruce Brown, Alec Burks. It really poses the question, who is the player the New York Knicks are going to go after? I can't really answer that for you. I can only break down the reports as they come out. But the one person and the team that's going to be able to answer that is Leon Rose, Worldwide West, and Gerson Rosas. The brain trust, the front office of the New York Knicks. They are the ones that have to answer this question and get us this player on this roster. I can't wait to see who they choose and what the deal is. But let's face it, guys, we know another move is coming because you can't have all these talks without another move on the way. But what about you guys? What do you think about these latest reports indicating that Jordan Clarkson likely wants to be traded to the New York Knicks? Let me know in the comments below, guys, because honestly, I would love to hear from you. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and smash that like button, leave a comment below, and of course, guys, please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, Knick fans. Peace.